Hey everybody, we're gonna make some planets today. So I've got one done here. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna add the texture and do that. So you're gonna need some paint for this. First thing you might wanna do is just Google planets and click images and look at some pictures of the planets so you can get an idea of the color schemes or some of the colors that you might wanna mix up for paint when you end up making this solar system painting here. So think about that, and then we will check out how to do this. So you're going to need some watercolor paint. You can use the craft acrylic paint too if that's what you have at home. You might want to dilute that with water. With the watercolors, you're definitely going to want to dilute it with water. So I'll get some painting stuff here and we'll set up and I'll show you how we're going to make the planets. Okay, you're going to have to do this first part on day one and let it dry for a while before you can actually cut out the planets and do everything. So this will definitely be a multi-day project. Okay, so I've got my paint palette here. If you had an ice cube tray at home, you could do that. I don't know how many people still have ice cube trays, but you could mix that in there, or some plastic cups to mix your colors with. And what you want is to add a little bit of water to your watercolor paint. So if you're using tube watercolor like me, you can use a spray bottle and fill it with water. That's a good way to fill it with some water. Spray bottle's nice even if you're using the pan watercolors, because then you can get everything fully mixed in. So let's start with something that might be a little bit like earth to start with. Okay, so we're gonna mix up some blue, and then we're just gonna flood this onto our paper. Okay, and we want to keep it fairly wet, okay, so it doesn't dry right away. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time. Okay, we'll paint a little bit of blue here, and then I'm going to mix this other blue up. Okay, so you want to have your paints kind of all ready to go, and then we'll mix some of these different colors together with blue. And then if we're going to do earth, then let's add a little green to it in here as well. Okay, so we'll have a little blue and green mixing together, and we'll leave a few white areas there as well. Okay, if you have some rinse water, you can rinse out your brush, and we'll just add that water to there. If you have your spray bottle, you can add a little bit of extra water to it, and that will let the paint kind of feather a little bit. It'll keep it wet, and it'll start to smear and bleed into each other and mix together. But then what we're going to do, okay, before this starts to dry out too much, is we're going to place a piece of plastic wrap on top of it, and that's how we're going to get the texture on the planet. Alright, cool. So I grabbed a piece of plastic wrap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that onto the picture. And it doesn't have to be perfectly flat. In fact, you want wrinkles in it, so you can kind of mash everything down a little bit, okay, and push it into there a little bit so that some wrinkles get onto the paper. Now, I normally use tempera paint in the classroom when we do this, and that seems to work pretty well. But I think the watercolor is maybe the next best thing for this. I did one with the acrylic paint, and it worked out okay, but I don't think that you get quite as good of a texture with that. Okay, so that's really all you have to do, okay, is put that paint on there, put the plastic wrap on there, and let it dry. Let's do a couple more color schemes, and then you can kind of go with this on your own and make 3 or 4 pieces of paper and then let them dry, and then I'll show you what the next part will be next time. Alright, cool. So now I've got some yellow paper, and we're gonna mix up a little red and orange for this one. Okay, so we'll do the same kind of idea here. We'll put a little red on. If get your paper wet if you want to at the beginning, okay? And that might actually help things out. We're just gonna kind of experiment here and see how this goes, okay? So we'll add a little bit of yellow in some places, okay? We'll let the yellow and the orange mix together. The yellow and the red mix together and make some orange. And then we'll add a little orange in there as well, okay? So we're gonna have all kinds of stuff going on here. Drop some of that just into the middle. There's not much to the technique here, okay? And you can think about where you want to put things and have one part be more red and one part be more orange and one part be more yellow, or you can spread it out everywhere, okay? And we'll just see what happens, okay? So then grab another piece of plastic wrap. Once you've got that piece of plastic wrap ready to go, then just lay it onto the picture and kind of scrunch it into place. And that's going to give it the texture, okay? It'll make it look kind of craggy or rocky like a planet, okay? So we'll see how those look next time after they're all dry. Okay, so that's another cool piece there. Going right through our paper a little bit. All right, let's try something a little bit different too. Cool, here we go. Here's some green, okay? This may be a little bit unusual, but why not, okay? Get the paper a little bit wet, okay? I'm going to add a little purple to this one, okay? And we'll see how this purple and green works out, okay? Maybe with a little bit of blue in there as well from before, okay? And why not add a little orange in some places, okay? With that orange and red in there, that's probably going to create some brownish spots too. And you're not really sure because sometimes what it looks like when the paper's all wet will be different than what it'll look like when everything dries out. Alright, so I added a little spray here to make sure everything was a little bit wet. And we'll add that plastic wrap on there. This will take a little bit longer to dry because the plastic wrap will hold that. So what I would do is leave it, okay, face up for a little while so it dries a little bit and the paint won't drip or anything, and then flip it over, okay, so that the plastic wrap is on the bottom and some air can circulate around the top, and that'll help it dry a little faster. But if you're just going to leave it overnight or until the next day, it probably doesn't matter that much. Alright, cool. Then let's just do one more. This will be kind of a tan color paper. And we're going to add a little bit of everything here. We're going to add some brown in there. And we'll add a little bit, whatever's left over of our red and orange. And we'll add a little bit of our blue into some places. And then we'll add a little bit of this purple that's left over. Okay. And you can kind of see that whole idea of wet in wet or wet on wet painting, where you allow the colors to kind of mix into each other while they're still actually wet. They kind of bleed into each other a little bit. Okay. So this is kind of fun just to paint and see what you end up with different kind of colored backgrounds. Okay. White might be better for showing most of the colors through, but you get some different effects with different colored background paper too. But if all you have is white, you'll be good, okay? You can do all of this with just white paper. So we're gonna smush that down onto there, and then kind of move things around until we get that, okay? All right, so I'm gonna clean up this area now, and then we'll make some starry space for the background, and then we'll be finished up with this today, and we'll let everything dry, and then we can come back next time and turn them into planets. All right, cool. So now I've got my black paper. I got a pretty big piece of paper. If you don't have black paper, well, this is going to be a little bit harder to do. Maybe some dark blue or something like that. You could paint the paper if you had the paint to do it, okay? I'm going to have to let you figure this out, but we'll figure that out. So I've got some white paint here. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this to get that ready to go, and then I'm going to mix it up, okay? Probably don't want this quite as thin as my other paint was, okay? But thin enough that we can do something cool here in just a moment. Okay, so the first way to do this, and probably the least messy way, is just to take your brush and tap it, right? And just kind of tap your brush. And if you tap your brush, you'll splatter little droplets of the white paint all over your black paper, okay? The messier way, but maybe the more fun way, is to take an old toothbrush, right? Okay, and dip that in the paint, and then take your finger and pull across the brush, and it will splatter. And that actually makes even tinier splatters. So that might be good if you're gonna try to fill in like a Milky Way galaxy or something all the way across. But the toothbrush makes the tiniest little splatters, where if you're on your paintbrush, you're gonna make larger splatters for the stars. So either of these ways is pretty cool and kind of fun, okay, just to fill in the background of space. So toothbrush flicking, just make sure you put a mat or some newspaper or some old paper or something out on the table, or maybe even better yet, grab this paper and take it out to your backyard and do it in the backyard out in the grass. That way you don't end up splattering white paint all over your kitchen table or whatever. So you might want to ask your mom and dad what the best thing is for splattering in the background of your spacescape. All right, so that's it for day one, and we're going to let all this stuff dry, and after it's dry, we'll come back, and in part two, we will cut out some circles and turn these things into some planets. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.